Hi, this is Oxford Business Tutor and I'm George Vlack-Nicholas, and as you can see I'm experimenting with a different camera angle today. So let me know how it's working out. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down and I won't do it again. So today, very briefly then, I want to talk about the difference between fixed costs and variable costs and why we care in business studies. It's a fundamental concept, it's one you'll do very early on, but it's the kind of thing that students often overlook and don't really see why it's so important until right at the end, and then it all comes together, but by that time it's kind of too late. So I'm going to dive into it straight away. If you look at a textbook will tell you that fixed costs are the costs that don't change with the level of output, and variable costs are the ones that do increase with the level of output. But that in itself is, very dry and boring, and until you kind of think of a context, it doesn't really make much sense. So I kind of look at a couple of businesses. Well, let's take a jeans company, a company that makes leather jeans, denim jeans. Okay, what would be their fixed costs and their variable costs? So the variable costs, remember, are those that change with output. So if I want to make more jeans, what sort of things do I need to buy in? Well, clearly I need the material, I need to buy some denim, I need to buy some buttons to put on the jeans, I need to buy some zippers. I mean, I don't know if you realize this, but a lot of that stuff isn't locally sourced. A lot of that stuff probably comes from China. So I've got to buy all these different things in, and obviously the more jeans I make, the more denim I need, the more buttons I need, and the more zippers I'm going to need. So they would all be considered a variable cost. Then when I get all those materials in, I make them in a factory and I make them with the machines, but I would consider the machines in the factory to be a fixed cost, because it doesn't matter how many jeans I'm making on any one given day or any week or any month, I'm probably going to still need that factory, and you can't rent out factories or warehouses for kind of weeks at a time. You have to probably rent them for a year at a time, or maybe even longer. So it doesn't matter how many jeans you're making, you got to pay the same cost whether or not you're making one pair of jeans or you're making 100 pairs of jeans in that same factory. And the same probably for the machines. Again, you're going to buy in a machine and you're not going to sell it immediately just because you're not making jeans for a while. You're going to keep it. It's a fixed cost, or if you're renting it, you don't rent them for a week, you don't rent them for a couple of weeks. Normally you'd rent them for a much longer period. So again, it doesn't matter how many jeans you're making, the number of machines will stay the same, and your costs, your fixed cost, that would be a fixed cost. It doesn't change with the level of output. Then you've obviously got the labor. Now with a jeans company, again, I would consider that a fixed cost, because I don't think that really depends on how many jeans we're making per week, per month, whatever. Okay, but that's not necessarily true for all businesses. So if we contrast that with, say, a strawberry farmer, okay, he's got his fixed costs, he's got his rentals on his land, he's got the fertilizer that he has to use every year. I mean, those quantities don't change. He's got his any outstanding loans that maybe he has on machinery. Again, he's not going to buy and sell machinery that quickly. It's all a fixed cost. It doesn't matter how many strawberries he produces. But labor in this sense, I think, does change, because during the winter season there are no strawberries to pick. So therefore he has no need for labor. As soon as the strawberries need picking, and that's his output, as soon as we need to pick strawberries and make that output, he has to hire in some labor to make them. So I think for the strawberry farmer, the labor does become a variable cost, okay, because he only needs that labor. The cost of labor only increases when the output's increasing. So I think for labor for him is a variable cost. So you can't always say that one thing is always a fixed cost and one thing is always a variable cost. Sometimes it's one or the other. It depends on the context. Sometimes even for some businesses, labor might be a semi-variable cost, half fixed, half variable. So if all your management's in place and some of your low-level employees are in place, maybe you're going to keep them on regardless of how much output you're using. But then let's say you're coming up to Christmas and there's a very heavy sales season, maybe you've got to employ some more staff very quickly, and that would suddenly become a variable cost because you're only employing them because the level of output's increasing. And there's a whole segue we could go into now about, well, if you're going to hire labor for a short amount of time, then you don't put them on a full-time contract. You probably don't even have them on a part-time contract. You have them on what's called a temporary contract, and you can get into a whole, discussion about 0 hours contracts and things like that, but that's probably for another video. So why are fixed and variable costs important? Well, the idea is that really, if you're a profit-making business at least, the price that you sell your good at isn't going to be anything less than the variable cost. If it is, then you're going to make a loss every time you sell that product, so your business isn't going to last for very long. So let's go back to the jeans factory. The denim's got a price, the button's got a price, the zipper's got a price. You put that all together, your transformation process, you get the output. Well, that output has now had it value added to it, and it should sell for a price that costs more than the inputs. The inputs being here, the variable costs. We're parking fixed costs for a moment, yeah? So the price that you need to sell at must be more than your kind of unit variable costs. That way you make money on every unit that you sell. But that money doesn't necessarily mean you make profit, not yet, okay? Because remember, we got those fixed costs. So at least for the first few units of jeans that you're selling, any money that you're making off the jeans has to go back towards paying your fixed costs off. So, you know, your first 5 pairs of jeans, maybe you're making $20 or £20 on your pair of jeans, but that doesn't mean you're making $20 profit, not yet, because it's got to go back to paying your factory rentals, your electricity bills, all these things that are your fixed costs. In business studies, in life, we're going to call that contribution. You're contributing towards your fixed costs. Once you've paid off your fixed costs, any more jeans that you sell, obviously then that becomes profit. So the contribution, as your contribution decreases, you hit a break-even point. Your break-even point is the point at which you've paid off your fixed costs, and then any output that you sell after that, they're profit making. That's your profit. So there's lots of different things you can do, and you can chart that, and maybe in a future video I'll start drawing the lines and you can chart that, but I'm sure if you look in the textbook they'll give you the numerical values for it. But I just wanted to have this particular video just aimed at why it's important. Well, it's really important to understand the difference, because you've got to get into your head, well, what is this thing about contribution? Why does contribution matter? And why isn't it that I'm making a profit almost immediately whenever I sell any one unit of good? Well, the truth for that is that you haven't considered your fixed costs, okay? You're making a couple of units. They are what might be deemed profitable in and of themselves, but the business isn't profitable yet, okay? The business isn't profitable until you've paid off your fixed costs. And once you've paid off your fixed costs, once you've broken even, and then you sell more output, that's the point at which you're going to make profit. So profit is the revenue that you make after you've paid off your fixed costs. Good luck.